Italian food fanatics. Today we're going to make spaghetti alla Amatriciana, a classic, ancient pasta that has very few ingredients, but those few ingredients are extremely important to the dish. Guanciale, which is pork jowl, that's the most important, believe it or not. You have to use guanciale. I've gone to great expense to get guanciale over here so that I can make it for you in the classic, authentic Italian way. All right? If you just say, well, I'd rather just use pancetta, please don't. And especially don't if you're going to use bacon. Those two other items, just they don't do justice to this iconic dish. You have to use a very high quality spaghetti. You have to use high quality tomatoes, and of course, the white wine and the pepper. If you can get the best quality there, you'll be rewarded. All right. Now, before we go into the kitchen, please thumbs up, like, subscribe, leave a comment for me. I answer all comments, believe it or not. Sometimes it takes me all day to go through them and to answer, but I do. You know why? Because I care about you. And I wanted to make something completely authentic for you. And today I have done that. Oh, and of course, the pecorino has to be of a high quality as well. All right? So all of the ingredients, by virtue of the fact that there's so few, become far more important. Kind of like in a carbonara or a cacio e pepe. All of these pastas that are ancient, that are simple, are not simplistic. They become far more sophisticated because the ingredients themselves matter so much more because there's so few of them. Anyway, I'm going to get off my high horse. You can learn how it's made in a couple of minutes by watching me do it. Thanks for liking. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for leaving comments. I really appreciate it. Now, come on. Let's get in the kitchen and attack this thing. All right, my Italian food fanatics, let's get started. Spaghetti Amatriciana. That's going to start with spaghetti, and a very high quality spaghetti as well. This is from bronze dyes, and it's slowly dried. You can tell, I don't know if you can see, but it is very, very rough, and it's a dull looking pasta, which tells us that it is very high quality. We also need guanciale, which is pork jowl that's been cured. I've already trimmed this down. We're going to cut it up in a second. We need 1 hot pepper. That's a very hot pepper. We need some Pecorino Romano. We need some high quality tomatoes. And we're using 100% California organic tomatoes, and of course a little bit of white wine. There aren't many ingredients to this very classic pasta. However, because of that fact, each one of these ingredients becomes extremely important. And we'll get to those in just a second. Right now we have to turn our attention to the guanciale, the pork jowl, and we're going to cut it into lardons. So we'll be right back. All right, we're back with our guanciale, and it's very simple. I've trimmed off all of the dark parts, or the off-white, the yellowish tinges that the guanciale typically has, and we are going to cut them into strips like this. Okay. In fact, I'm going to cut them into strips like this. All right. Let me just cut that in half there. So essentially, they're not going to be like what we would really call lardons, because lardons are going to be a little bit longer than this, but essentially that's what they are. Cut them in long pieces like this. And then I'm going to cut these pieces in half, as I mentioned earlier. And then this one, because it's a little bit thinner, that doesn't really need to happen. We can just cut this here like this, and it's going to be just fine. All right, I'll come back when the rest of these are cut up the right way. All right, our guanciale has been cut up into those lardons like I showed you. And now we're going to grate some Pecorino Romano. Now it's important that this be grated pretty fine, and you know me, I like to either use a box grater or this particular machine here, or tool instrument, and that'll get it down so it's pretty well grated. All right, I'm not going to bore you with this. I'll come back when this is all finished. And of course we have our chili pepper, and we're just going to cut that in half this way. All right, it's an extremely hot pepper, and so consequently that's just going to be more than enough to give our Amatriciana the amount of heat that it needs before we take this stuff out. All right, now I've opened up the can of tomatoes, and we are going to just give these a quick little crush here. You could do it with your hands. There's no harm in that, so long as your hands are clean, obviously. Either that, or who cares if your hands are clean. If you're the one that's eating it, that's fine. But if you're making it for me, I hope your hands are clean. And we're going to remove these skins that are in here. We don't really want those. But other than that, that looks about good. All right? This is for a couple of portions. And we're ready to go to the stove. We'll be back. All right, my Italian food fanatics, we are at the stove. And Amatriciana is very simple. We have a pan, it's on the heat, and the guanciale goes in. We're going to render the fat from the guanciale, and we're going to crisp it up just a little bit. And that's it. There is no olive oil added in the authentic version. It's just the fat from the pork jowl. All right? So I'll come back when this is a little bit further along. Now, some people will tell you to put water in with the guanciale or the pancetta or the bacon, and there's a good reason for that, is because it allows the fat to break down a lot easier, and it doesn't burn the bacon or the pancetta or the guanciale. But in this version, I'm trying to stick to as close to the original authentic recipe as possible. And so we're not going to be employing those little culinary tricks here. We're going to go straight ahead and attack it like you would if you were in Italy. All right, so you can see how our guanciale now is crisping up a little bit. All right, we want it to be crunchy on the outside, but soft on the inside. And now we'll add our wine. And we'll reduce that down. This essentially arrests the cooking process as far as the browning is concerned. But that browning brings a lot of flavor too. So you have the fat and the flavor from that, as well as the flavor from the browning of the guanciale, which is going to make this absolutely fantastic. So we'll reduce this down, and I'll be back in a second. All right, so we're back. And once this wine is reduced down, you can hear the sizzling, and you can also see it, which basically means we're back down to the water has evaporated, and now we're getting into the fat. So what we'll do is we'll add our tomato product. And we'll bring that to a simmer. And in the meantime, we'll also add our hot pepper into there. Okay? So now while this comes to a simmer, and as it cooks down for a few minutes, we're going to start our pasta. This is a very fast pasta, believe it or not. It should be able to be done in 15 minutes at the most. So I'll turn the heat on under our water, and we'll be back. Now, while our water is coming to a boil, you'll notice that I've turned the heat down on this, and we're just going to let it simmer away and reduce down a little bit to concentrate its flavors. I haven't added salt because the guanciale is very salty. The pecorino that's going to be coming in is very salty, and we are going to salt the pasta water, but we're going to put less salt in the pasta water than we normally do. So about half as much. And we'll turn our attention to that right now. So here we are, our pasta water is boiling. You know I use 4 cups and typically 2 teaspoons of salt. In this case, it's only 1. We'll mix this up to distribute the salt. It disintegrates. And then we're going to add in our spaghetti. And now you know the salt that I use. It's regular old table salt. Nothing special. No sea salt. Well, most salt, 90% of all salt that is sold in the world comes from the sea, believe it or not. So when people say, oh, I like to use sea salt, I say to myself, what are you, crazy? Of course you like to use sea salt, because that's what's available. That's most of everything. That's where we get our salt. Unless it comes from a salt mine, like those in the Himalayas, which gives us the Himalayan pink salt in Pakistan. So anyway, we'll stir this in, and in about 10 minutes, a little bit longer, 11 to 12 minutes, we'll be back when this is al dente. And then we'll add it into our tomatoes, add in our Pecorino Romano, and mix it up, and we'll be almost done. All right. See how that beautifully goes in there? We'll be back. Our pasta is almost ready, and while we're waiting it for the last minute or so, we're going to remove that hot pepper, because the last thing you want to do is bite into that. We'll be back when it's time to add the pasta in. All right, our pasta is ready, and so we're going to add it into the tomato sauce and guanciale and wine and hot pepper. Then now, let me get the rest of this in here. The last of it. There we go. Going to mix this in here. And what has to happen now is that this is going to come off heat. And the reason for that is because we're going to have to add our pecorino into it. And it cannot be on the heat with pecorino. All right? I'm going to add some of our cheese. And of course the heat is off, I've told you. And we're going to mix that into there and cream it up a little bit. In fact, I'm going to add a little bit more cheese. There we go. And this is the reason why we didn't add so much salt, was because the pecorino is extremely salty, and it would just be too much. All right. There we go. Just a couple of more tosses with this, and we're going to be good. And this is classic Amatriciana. All right, let's plate it up. All right, my Italian food fanatics, we are here. It is time to taste this spaghetti Amatriciana. An ancient pasta, an old pasta, but still one of the oldies but goodies. Very simple, straightforward ingredients, and my mouth is already watering just thinking about it. Wow. That is perfectly seasoned. All right. The pasta is perfectly cooked. That is excellent. The guanciale is chewy, and it has that flavor. You can taste the white wine. There's a hint of heat. I didn't really leave that pepper in for very, very long to give us a lot of heat, but boy, is this good. This is not exactly a low-calorie pasta either, by virtue of the fact that you have so much of that guanciale fat in there. There's just enough pecorino. And of course, nothing could be better than tomato sauce and spaghetti. And believe it or not, these are excellent tomatoes. It's cooked down just perfectly. It seems to be simple, but it's not simplistic. It's a sophisticated dish and one that you have to try. Wow. In fact, please hit the thumbs up, subscribe, hit the bell, leave a comment down below if you make this. If you make this and send me a photograph in an email, I am happy to mention your name and to feature your dish on my channel as well. All right? So, I'm going to enjoy the rest of this. Please, guanciale is expensive. All right? I won't deny that. But don't use pancetta. Pancetta, I really am not a big fan of pancetta, especially when it's put in a frying pan and heat is added. There's a smell that comes off of it that I don't particularly care for at all. But guanciale, that's a different program. It is. Oh, when you smell it, even just smelling the piece of meat right there, there's just something so sweet and nice about it that, and then when you make it a little bit crunchy, oh, it is so good. So it's expensive, especially for us here on the West Coast of the United States. It is prohibitively expensive, but in order to try it and to make this a couple of times, 2, 3, 4, 5 times, to really taste what these classic dishes taste like, it's worth it. All right? It's worth it. Spend a little bit of money and get the guanciale and go to town with this. I think you'll appreciate it. So let's not waste any more time. Go and do that. Get high quality ingredients. Treat them with respect and consideration, and you will reap the rewards of your toil. Let's put it that way. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Have a great day. Bye-bye.